You can't think big with a doubting mind. You can't build an empire when the foundation is fear. You can't change your life if the first voice you hear every morning tells you you're not enough. Doubt is not just a whisper, it's a weight. It wraps itself around your confidence, your ambition, your creativity, and chokes them out before they even get to breathe. People talk about dreaming big, but what they don't tell you is this: you cannot dream big in a mind built to stay small. You cannot rise when every thought pulls you down. You cannot reach the mountaintop if your mind is stuck in the valley, and most people live there, in the valley, not because they have to, but because their thoughts never gave them permission to leave. Doubt is sneaky. It sounds like logic, it sounds like caution, but it's fear in disguise. It tells you to wait, to shrink, to play it safe. It tells you to dream realistically. And if you listen long enough, it starts sounding like your own voice. That's the danger. Doubt doesn't scream, it echoes. It echoes your childhood failures, your past rejections, that one time you tried and it didn't work, that one person who told you you weren't good enough. And soon that echo becomes louder than your goals, louder than your plans, louder than your purpose. You stop dreaming not because you don't want to, but because you've been convinced you can't. And that's where most people get stuck, in the prison of their own mind, not chained by others but by the lies they've repeated to themselves so often they now believe them as truth. You'll hear people say, "I'm just being realistic." But what is realistic? Realistic is just a synonym for limited, when spoken by someone who's lost their fire. What's realistic for one person is irrelevant to another. Flying used to be unrealistic. So did electricity. So did making money through a screen. So does anything worth having until someone makes it real. And that someone isn't always the smartest, the richest, or the most experienced. It's the one who believed enough to try. That's it. Belief is the gateway, and doubt is the gatekeeper. Every time you have a big idea, doubt asks, "Who do you think you are?" Every time you want to level up, doubt whispers, "You're not ready." But listen closely, that voice isn't telling you the truth. It's trying to keep you safe, because doubt doesn't care about your potential. Doubt cares about your comfort. It wants you to survive, not thrive. It wants you to avoid risk, not create greatness. And the problem is, too many people have made comfort their god. They pray at the altar of mediocrity because they're too afraid to fail. But let me tell you something. You were not born to stay hidden. You were not born to play it small. You were not put on this planet to wake up, pay bills, and die. There is something in you that the world hasn't seen yet, but the world will never see it if you keep doubting it. You can have the talent, you can have the vision, but if you don't have belief, you'll never take the shot. You'll never go all in. You'll never step fully into the version of yourself that scares people because it's so powerful. Because real confidence doesn't come from what you've done, it comes from what you've decided. You decide that this is who you are. You decide that this is where you're going, and you move like it's already yours. Not because it's easy, not because it's guaranteed, but because you know the alternative. Staying stuck is unacceptable. Thinking big is not a skill. It's a choice. It's a choice to silence the voice of doubt before it speaks. To walk anyway. To speak anyway. To build anyway. Even when the evidence isn't there yet, even when no one claps, even when the old voices come back saying, "Be careful," because being careful never changed the world, playing small never inspired anyone, and doubting yourself never made you free. You want to think big? Kill the doubt, starve it of your energy, deny it your attention, replace it with action, with movement, with decision. Feed your mind with greatness. Surround yourself with people who reflect your future, not your past. And most importantly, stop waiting for the perfect moment to start thinking like the person you were meant to be. Start now. Think boldly, move loudly, dream recklessly, because the world doesn't need another person doubting their power. It needs someone brave enough to believe. Doubt will dress itself up as your friend. It'll tell you it's protecting you, keeping you from failure, from embarrassment, from disappointment. But here's the truth. Doubt is not a friend. Doubt is a thief. It steals your momentum, your voice, your confidence. It steals your future. You don't need more time. You don't need more knowledge. You don't need more motivation. What you need is less permission-seeking and more self-command. Most people are waiting for someone to tell them it's okay to go big, to say, yes, you can, as if the green light has to come from outside. But what if the world never gives it to you? What if no one claps, no one encourages you, no one sees your value until much later? Will you stay small just because the audience hasn't arrived yet? Listen, people only cheer for what they understand, and most people won't understand you at first. That's okay. Your job is not to be understood, it's to become undeniable. And you don't become undeniable by playing small. You become undeniable by acting on vision, not validation. You become undeniable by doing the work in silence when no one's watching. You become undeniable by trusting that the version of you inside your mind is not a fantasy. It's a future waiting to be claimed. Thinking big is dangerous for the doubting mind because it creates tension. Tension between who you are and who you know you could be. That tension is either going to make you break or make you move, and it all depends on one question. Who do you believe you are? Not in words, but in energy, in action, in repetition, because the doubting mind will always search for more proof before it commits. But the powerful mind knows this truth. Belief creates proof. You move first, and the proof shows up after. Most people never see the proof because they never move. They overthink. They wait. They analyze everything until the moment passes. Doubt will keep you in that loop forever. It will make you the world's best planner, but the worst executor. You'll be full of strategy and empty on results. You'll be good at starting, but allergic to finishing. And nothing grows in that mindset. Nothing great, at least. The most powerful people you know aren't fearless. They just move through fear faster. They hear the same voices you do, but they don't obey them. They understand that doubt is not an enemy to destroy. It's a noise to ignore. Because once you stop giving it power, it loses its volume. And once the doubt gets quiet, your vision gets loud. It gets clearer. It gets sharper. You start remembering who you are. You start walking differently, talking differently. You stop apologizing for your dreams. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You stop waiting for someone to pick you. You realize you pick you. You crown yourself. You move with purpose, not because someone said you could, but because deep down you finally decided, I was never meant to be average. I was never meant to stay small. And that decision changes everything. That's when the shift happens. That's when the work begins, not just on the outside, but on the inside. You start protecting your energy. You start saying no to things that drain you. You stop explaining your moves to people who never had the courage to make their own. You stop looking for external proof that you're on the right path, and you become the proof. Every day you wake up and move forward, despite the voices, despite the fear, despite the unknown. You become living evidence that a doubting mind can be reprogrammed, that a broken self-image can be rebuilt. That belief is not something you're born with, it's something you train. You train it by keeping your word to yourself, by doing hard things, by showing up when it's uncomfortable, because the more you show up for yourself, the less room there is for doubt to live. Doubt feeds on inconsistency, on broken promises, on excuses. But belief? Belief feeds on discipline, on alignment, on self-respect. The more you act like the person you want to become, the less power doubt has over you. You stop negotiating with fear. You stop shrinking in rooms where you were born to lead. And you stop asking for permission to be powerful. This is your life. This is your time. And if you want to think big, to move big, to build something bigger than yourself, you have to kill the noise. You have to rise above the static of self-doubt and plant your feet in the ground like you were made for this. Because you were. You wouldn't have the vision if you weren't meant to live it. You wouldn't have the calling if you weren't meant to carry it. And you wouldn't feel that fire if it wasn't time to burn away the doubt and walk into your next level. Big thinking isn't for the chosen, it's for the committed. It's for the one who dares to believe, even without applause. It's for the one who shows up fully, even when half the world tells them to slow down. And it's for you, if you're ready to stop letting doubt write your story. You can't think big when your inner voice is your biggest enemy. You can't think big when every idea you have gets cross-examined by a courtroom in your head. That voice, it questions everything, not with wisdom but with fear. It doesn't say, let's improve this. It says, you're not good enough to even try. You've heard it before. That's too much. That's not realistic. What if it fails? But here's the truth. You don't fear failure. You fear exposure. You fear what it will mean if you try and still don't win. You fear judgment, embarrassment, the loss of control. But that fear, it's all illusion. No one really cares if you fall. Most people are too busy doubting themselves to be focused on you. And the ones who do criticize, they're usually the ones who never started. You want to think big? Then you need to realize something. Self-doubt is not humility. It's sabotage. You've confused shrinking for modesty. But there's nothing humble about ignoring your calling. There's nothing noble about staying quiet when your voice was meant to lead. Thinking big doesn't mean being arrogant. It means being obedient to the gift, the fire, the vision inside you. That vision didn't choose you at random. It's yours for a reason. But doubt will make you hand it over. Doubt will convince you that someone else is more worthy, that someone else is more ready. And while you're busy overthinking, someone with half your talent is out there executing, winning, growing, because they moved while you hesitated. The doubting mind builds walls. The believing mind builds bridges. A wall keeps you safe, but stuck. A bridge? It takes you somewhere new, somewhere unknown, somewhere better. So here's a hard truth. You're not stuck because of lack of opportunity. You're stuck because of lack of belief. And belief isn't something you find, it's something you choose. Every single day. Even when you feel unqualified, even when you feel behind, even when nothing around you looks like success yet. Because if you can train your mind to believe before the breakthrough, you become unstoppable. Thinking big doesn't mean you never hear the voice of doubt. It means you stop giving it the final vote. It means you feel the fear and move anyway. It means you see the obstacles and climb anyway. It means you take the shot, not because you're certain, but because not taking it would haunt you more. Let me tell you something. The biggest pain in life is not failure. It's regret. Regret for not trusting yourself. Regret for letting fear dictate your path. Regret for letting a doubtful mind steal years from your purpose. You don't want that pain. That pain will follow you. It'll sit with you at night. It'll whisper to you at every quiet moment. And you'll realize too late that the moment you needed to believe was not after you succeeded, but before you even began. That's the key. That's the turning point. Big thinking begins before the world sees your value. It begins when you decide you're no longer available for the small life, that you're no longer negotiating with your potential, that you're done playing support in the story you were born to lead. That's when things shift, because your actions start matching your intentions. You stop saying someday and you start saying now. You stop looking for signs and start becoming the signal. You stop waiting to feel ready and realize readiness is a myth. Nobody ever feels ready. You become ready by acting. That's the secret every high-level mind knows. You show up uncertain, you show up shaky, but you show up again and again and again until the doubt has no room to breathe. until the doubt can't survive in the presence of your discipline. Because discipline is the death of doubt. It's the proof that belief isn't just talk, it's action. You say you want to level up? Show me your rituals. Show me your habits. Show me what you do when no one is watching. Because thinking big isn't about what you post online. It's about what you do in private. It's about choosing long-term vision over short-term comfort. It's about turning down distractions, tuning out the noise, and doing the boring work no one claps for. That's what builds belief. That's what makes you dangerous. Because now you're no longer operating from hope. You're operating from identity. This is who I am. This is what I do. And there's no room in that identity for doubt to live. Doubt may knock, but you don't answer. You're too busy building, too focused on growing, too committed to what's next. And that's the kind of energy the world can't ignore. Because belief is magnetic. Confidence is contagious. You walk into rooms and shift the atmosphere, not because you're loud, but because you're grounded. People feel it. They feel when someone has done the inner work. They feel when someone has killed the doubt and stepped into full ownership. And that presence, that energy, it opens doors that talent alone can't. It draws opportunities that effort alone misses. Because when you think big from a place of deep belief, the world doesn't just watch. You make the world respond. If you want to think big, you need to understand one thing. Your environment either feeds your doubts or fuels your belief. You can't stay around people who constantly operate from fear and expect yourself to live in faith. You can't keep having low-level conversations and expect high-level results. The people you allow close to your mind will either stretch it or shrink it. Every day you're being programmed by the content you consume, the words you hear, the energy you tolerate. So if your vision is being strangled, you need to ask, who's holding the rope? Who's speaking into your future? Are they building it or slowly poisoning it? Doubt isn't always loud. Sometimes it shows up in small, reasonable voices. Maybe you should wait. Play it safe. Don't be too much. And the dangerous part is that those voices often come from people you love, from people who care. But care without clarity can be a curse. Just because someone loves you doesn't mean they understand your mission. You can't build a skyscraper on the foundation of a fearful mind, and you can't share your boldest dreams with people who live in survival mode. That's why part of thinking big is learning to protect your vision. Not everyone gets access. Not everyone earns the right to speak into your path. That's not arrogance, it's alignment. You wouldn't plant a seed in bad soil and expect it to thrive. So why keep placing your ideas in doubting minds and wonder why they die? Your dream is sacred. It needs space, it needs light, it needs belief. And most of all, it needs you to stop waiting for someone else to believe in it first. Because the truth is, nobody sees it like you do. Nobody feels it like you do. That idea was whispered to you for a reason. The calling came to you. And the moment you start acting like it was meant for someone else, you betray it. You water it down. You lose the fire. And that's when doubt takes over. Not because it's stronger than you, but because you handed over the keys. Thinking big isn't about always being confident. It's about always coming back. Every time you get hit, you rise again. Every time you fall short, you adjust. Every time fear shows up, you walk forward anyway. That resilience, that's the real flex. That's what separates the ones who dream from the ones who build. Because the dreamers stop when doubt whispers. But the builders, they keep hammering. They keep laying brick even when the wind howls and the rain comes. They build while scared. They build while doubted. They build while misunderstood. And in the end, they build something nobody can ignore. That's the mindset you need. The doubting mind waits for certainty. The big thinker creates it. Not through talk, but through action, through consistency, through deciding, I may not feel like it today, but I'll show up anyway. That's how belief is built, brick by brick, decision by decision. You want to know how to kill doubt? Stack evidence, stack results. Prove to yourself that you're exactly who you say you are, not once, but daily. The more evidence you stack, the quieter the doubt becomes. You start thinking bigger because you have proof that you can handle bigger, and suddenly what used to scare you becomes your new normal. That's how you stretch. That's how you grow. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it costs something. But so does staying stuck. So does living small. So does explaining to yourself, year after year, why you never tried. The price of big thinking is discomfort. The price of small thinking is regret. You choose. Every day you choose. And if you're honest, you already know what your soul wants. You already know what you're capable of. You've just been negotiating with fear for too long. You've been making room for doubt when what you really need is discipline, not motivation. Discipline, because motivation fades. But discipline? That's internal authority. That's you deciding, I don't need to feel ready, I just need to move. Every time you take a step without permission, you weaken doubt's grip. You train your nervous system to stop expecting approval. You train your energy to stay focused, even in silence. And eventually, you stop chasing clarity and start becoming clarity. You walk into spaces and no longer shrink. You pitch ideas without flinching. You move boldly, not because you have no fear, but because you've stopped making fear your God. That's the difference. The doubting mind worships fear. The believing mind serves purpose. So who's running your life right now? Doubt or discipline, fear or focus? You can't think big with a doubting mind. You can only rehearse survival. And survival is not your destiny. You weren't born to live small. You weren't created to just get by. You were wired to lead, to create, to leave something behind that outlives you. But none of that happens by accident. It happens when you stop waiting for the world to believe in you and start believing in yourself with a level of conviction that makes people uncomfortable. That kind of belief rewrites the script. That kind of belief shifts timelines. That kind of belief makes you dangerous, not to others, but to every limitation that ever tried to keep you average. That's what's on the other side of doubt. Freedom. Freedom to rise. Freedom to expand. Freedom to finally take up the space you were always meant to. And it all begins the moment you decide, this mind, this voice, this vision is mine to protect. And I will no longer let doubt decide what kind of life I get to live. At some point, you have to make a decision. Either live the rest of your life bowing to the voice of doubt, or finally rise and own your power. Because here's the truth. Nobody's coming to rescue you. Nobody's coming to hand you the confidence. Nobody's coming to drag you into your greatness. This journey, it's personal, and it's not about proving anyone wrong. It's about proving to yourself that your vision wasn't a fantasy. It was a glimpse of your potential. But potential means nothing without action. You can sit with all the talent in the world and still rot in silence. You can have the deepest ideas and the loudest dreams, but if your mind is a battlefield of hesitation, nothing ever gets built. Thinking big isn't some inspirational slogan, it's war. It's you versus every excuse, every delay, every moment of overthinking that tries to convince you to shrink. It's the daily choice to step outside of who you've been and into who you're meant to become. And no, it's not easy. But what's the alternative? Living small, dimming your light, dying with everything still inside you? That's not living. That's spiritual starvation. And it starts so quietly. You make small compromises. You say, maybe next year. You lower your standards to make others comfortable. You stop speaking your truth to avoid judgment. And before you know it, you're a ghost inside your own life, watching other people rise, watching other people lead, watching other people build, and deep down, knowing you were just as capable, but you let doubt steal your time. Not anymore. Not from today. From this moment on, you reclaim your mind. You reclaim your power. You take back every piece of belief that you gave away. And you begin the rebuild, not with hype, but with intention, not with perfection, but with progress. You start showing up differently. You start talking to yourself with more respect. You stop calling yourself names. You stop attaching your worth to your mistakes. And you start speaking life into your identity. I am powerful. I am disciplined. I am capable of creating something that matters. It sounds simple, but that internal shift, it changes everything, because you stop waiting for the outside world to validate you. You start becoming your own source of energy. And when that happens, when your belief is no longer for sale, you become untouchable. People will feel it. You'll walk into rooms and the air changes, not because you're arrogant, but because you're anchored. You're no longer here to be liked. You're here to be legendary. You're no longer here to survive. You're here to leave a mark. You think big because you finally realized that playing small never protected you. It only delayed your purpose. So now you move different. You cut off anything that doesn't feed your focus. You outgrow people who still speak the language of fear. You stop explaining your vision to those who stopped dreaming long ago. And you walk forward, not because the path is clear, but because the path is yours. That alone is enough. That alone is fire. That alone is the permission you've been waiting for. Because the day you stop negotiating with doubt is the day your power returns. And the world won't understand it at first. They'll say you've changed. You'll say, finally. Finally, I'm living from truth, not trauma. Finally, I'm leading from purpose, not pain. Finally, I'm moving from belief, not begging. And that belief, it becomes your compass. In every challenge, in every storm, in every silence where no one claps for you, you keep going, you keep showing up. Because you understand now, this isn't just about you. This is about everyone watching, everyone silently asking, is it possible for someone like me? And every step you take, every mountain you climb, becomes their answer. You weren't just born to think big. You were born to be big, to create, to shake foundations, to become a symbol of what's possible when belief meets action. And it all begins when you silence the doubting mind and finally decide to become the leader of your life.